Pedro Jimeno, the familiar face from 90 Day Fiancé, had been quiet on social media for weeks. His last post was a cryptic caption over a sunset. Sometimes, to find peace, you have to cross an ocean. Fans speculated he was working on himself, maybe even filming a secret TLC spin-off. But no one expected the next update that would send shockwaves through fan forums and Instagram comments sections alike. It was a grainy paparazzi photo first leaked by an Italian gossip blog. Pedro, standing outside a vineyard near Tuscany, wearing aviator sunglasses, a white linen shirt unbuttoned just enough to hint at vacation vibes, and beside him, a stunning woman no one could identify. Tall, elegant, and effortlessly stylish, the woman wore a wide-brimmed hat, her auburn hair cascading over her shoulders. Her olive-toned skin glowed in the Mediterranean sun, and she laughed with her head tilted back, holding a glass of Chianti. But it wasn't just the mystery woman that caught attention, it was the way Pedro looked at her. The internet exploded. Who was she? A new girlfriend? A friend? A co-star? Pedro stayed silent. But the truth, as it turned out, was far more romantic and mysterious than anyone could have imagined. Day 1, arrival in Tuscany. Pedro had always dreamed of Italy. After everything, his high-profile marriage, the televised fights, the public divorce, he needed a place to breathe. A producer friend from a short-lived TLC special had offered him a low-key, off-the-radar villa in the heart of Chianti. No cameras, no scripts, just olives, wine, and solitude. He didn't expect to meet anyone. The villa was modest, tucked between rolling hills and tall cypress trees. The owner, a cheerful older man named Luca, greeted him with 2 espressos and too many stories about his granddaughter, Isabella, a local art historian visiting from Florence for the summer. Pedro wasn't listening. Not really, not until he saw her. She walked in wearing paint-stained jeans and a canvas bag slung over her shoulder, fresh from the Uffizi galleries. Isabella was unlike anyone he'd ever met, bookish yet bold, sarcastic yet soft-spoken. She smiled at him with eyes that held centuries of art and history behind them. "You're the American reality star?" she asked in accented English. "Dominican, actually," he corrected with a smile. She raised an eyebrow. "But real?" That made him laugh. They had dinner that night on the villa terrace. The pasta was handmade, the wine flowed freely, and their conversation danced from Frida Kahlo to Pedro's favorite Dominican baseball team. She didn't ask about the show, and he didn't talk about it. It felt refreshing. Day 9, secrets and sunsets. They'd spent a week exploring the region, hot springs in Catania, scooter rides through Siena, late-night swims under the stars. The paparazzi photo? Taken during a wine tour, Isabella insisted on. She joked that Pedro had no palate. "You drink Chianti like it's juice." But there was more brewing beneath the laughter. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, Pedro turned to her. "You're not just visiting your grandfather, are you?" She hesitated, then smiled. "I'm restoring a fresco in a church nearby. It's complicated and secret. Technically, I'm not allowed to talk about it." Pedro raised an eyebrow. "So, I'm on vacation with an art spy?" "More like an art nurse," she said, laughing. The mystery only drew him in deeper. Day 17, the past creeps in. Pedro knew the peace wouldn't last forever. Word had gotten out. TLC producers had reached out, hinting at a new spin-off, Pedro's Passport to Love. He declined. He didn't want to turn this into a storyline. But social media was relentless. Speculation about the woman in the hat filled Reddit threads. Some fans were supportive, others harsh. One morning, Isabella found Pedro on the terrace, phone in hand, looking frustrated. "They're saying I'm using you for fame," he muttered. "That you're fake." She sat beside him, took his hand. "Do you think I'm fake?" He looked at her, the Tuscan breeze playing with her hair, her eyes steady. "No, that's the problem. You're the realest thing I've had in years." She leaned in, then let them talk. Day 30 of Florence and first kisses. Pedro followed Isabella back to Florence for a weekend. She showed him hidden parts of the city, the artist's staircase behind the Duomo, a secret bakery where they made cornetti with lavender honey, the tiny chapel where she worked in silence, restoring saints' faces with microscopic brushes. On the Ponte Vecchio, they shared their first kiss. It wasn't dramatic, not even Instagram-worthy, just soft, certain, like two people who had finally found someone who wasn't trying to change them. Pedro whispered in her ear, "If I was still on that show, this would be the season finale." She grinned. "But is there a next season?" He didn't answer, but his hand tightened around hers. Day 45, storms and silences. Not all days were perfect. Pedro had a moment, triggered by a tabloid headline that resurfaced old trauma. He snapped during dinner. accusing Isabella of Googling his past. She stood, stunned. Pedro, I don't care who you were with, I care who you are now. But if you can't separate the show from your real life, then maybe you're still living it. He realized she was right. The next morning, he found her at the chapel, her hands trembling as she worked on the fresco. I'm sorry, he said quietly. She nodded. I know it's hard, but you're allowed to be loved. Pedro, even without a camera. Day 60, a choice back at the villa. Luca offered Pedro a glass of limoncello. My granddaughter, she doesn't bring people here. You must be different. Pedro chuckled. Or stubborn. Luca looked at him carefully. You should know she was offered a job. In Rome. Big project. She hasn't told you? Pedro's heart sank. That night, he asked her. She didn't deny it. I was waiting, she said, to see if this was real. He took a breath. And, I think it is. So, I want to try. But not if you're going to run back to the cameras. He looked around the villa, the hills, the sky that felt bigger here than anywhere else. He thought about how easy it would be to sell this story to a network, but he also thought about how much harder it would be to live it authentically. I'm not going anywhere, he said, not unless it's with you. Day 89, full circle on their last night in Tuscany. Pedro and Isabella hosted a small dinner at the villa. Luca cooked, neighbors brought wine, and the stars came out in full force. There were no drones, no confessionals, no producers, just laughter, music, and love that had grown slowly, like the vines in the hills around them. Isabella raised a toast to unexpected journeys. Pedro raised his glass beside her, and to finding something real. Day 90, a decision as they packed their bags, hers for Rome, his for a temporary Airbnb nearby. Pedro checked his phone, emails, DMs, and a final message from a TLC exec. Final offer. Pedro's passport to love. 6 episodes, global locations, starts filming next month. Interested? He smiled, then he deleted it. As Isabella stepped out of the villa, she looked at him curiously. Ready? Pedro slung his bag over his shoulder. I already am. Epilogue, months later, a small art magazine published a feature on Isabella's fresco restoration in Rome. In one photo, blurred in the background, a familiar face could be seen holding a sketchbook. He was smiling. No one knows for sure if Pedro and Isabella are still together. They don't post about each other. There are no sponsored couples retreats or interviews, just whispers of sightings in Italy, Spain, and once, a bookstore in Lisbon. And maybe that's the point. Not every love story needs a season finale. Some just need peace, privacy, and maybe a glass of Chianti.